All right, Celtics Nation, we have a lot to unpack from the recent Boston Celtics game, and there is no shortage of drama when it comes to turnovers and individual performances. Let's start by diving into the uncharacteristic ball handling struggles that the team faced, especially during their games in New York and Brooklyn. Something about playing in New York City seemed to throw off the Celtics' rhythm. It wasn't a matter of tough officiating or just a fast-paced game, the kind that often leads to 20 turnovers but can be somewhat justified by aggressive play. These were different. These were sloppy, avoidable mistakes that range from passes that simply slipped through fingers to moments where the ball was ripped away by defenders. There was nothing strategic about them. They were just plain errors. Jaylen Brown had a few aggressive turnovers, like tossing the ball over someone's head in crucial moments. And while those are part of playing assertively, the bulk of the errors were unforced and frustrating. Even when we consider games with unusual referee calls, like offensive fouls being counted as turnovers, it still doesn't explain the frequency of mistakes in this matchup. It looked almost as if the Celtics had entered the arena in a haze, unable to establish the focus that is typically expected at this level. The defensive pressure applied by Brooklyn was more aggressive than what the Celtics are used to seeing, though it wasn't excessive trapping or overly complex schemes. It was more a heightened energy, a few extra hands in passing lanes, and slightly more assertive closeouts than Boston normally encounters. That, combined with mental lapses, led to a cascade of turnovers, and it was evident early on that this was going to be a rough night. The drives that usually allow Celtics playmakers to read the floor and find the open man were interrupted repeatedly because heads were down, decisions were rushed, and passes weren't anticipated correctly. Players like Jaylen Brown normally excel by reading multiple layers of defense, spotting the roll man, or identifying help defenders before making a pass. But on this night, that awareness was inconsistent. By the time the third quarter rolled around, it was clear that the sloppy performance wasn't just a first-half anomaly. The turnovers persisted despite efforts to regroup, and the Celtics were staring down a double-digit deficit until individual bursts from Peyton Pritchard and Jaylen Brown themselves started to salvage the situation. Peyton Pritchard, in particular, was instrumental early on, keeping the Celtics competitive in the first quarter when the team was struggling to string together clean possessions. He provided scoring, rebounding, and playmaking that allowed Boston to stay within striking distance. Jaylen, meanwhile, had a roller coaster performance, both creating offense and committing turnovers that could have been costly. He ended up scoring 17 points in the third quarter alone, showing resilience and leadership even while grappling with mistakes that would have demoralized a lesser player. It is a testament to his skill that despite 8 turnovers and periods of apparent mental fog, he still contributed nearly 30 points, connecting efficiently from both three-point range and the free throw line. His effort helped prevent what could have been a disastrous game from turning into a loss, demonstrating the fine line between mistakes and heroics in high-level basketball. Defensively, the second half was a stark contrast to the first. Derek White stood out with his energy and presence on that end of the court. His chase-down blocks, timely steals, and situational awareness shifted momentum for the Celtics. He wasn't just making highlight plays. His defense directly led to points and allowed Boston to capitalize on Brooklyn mistakes. In the second half, the Celtics forced 9 turnovers, significantly higher than the 4 they managed in the first half. In the fourth quarter, the defensive pressure was dialed up even further, limiting Brooklyn to only 3 turnovers while Boston forced 6. This allowed the team to run transition opportunities and grind out a lead despite earlier sloppy play. Derek White's performance, along with contributions from Lelovich on the fourth quarter defensive end, helped stabilize the team when the game could have slipped entirely out of their hands. Pritchard continued to show why his role is critical for the Celtics. With 22 points, 10 rebounds, and 5 assists, he was a constant presence on both ends, stepping up in moments when others were faltering. His three-point accuracy and ability to get to the free throw line helped maintain offensive flow, and his awareness on the court allowed him to complement the team's defensive adjustments. Even as Jaylen Brown struggled with turnovers, Pritchard's calm and calculated play enabled Boston to remain competitive. It's rare to see a team overcome 21 turnovers and still come away with a win, but that was the narrative of this game, driven by individual resilience and a collective effort to mitigate mistakes. Looking at Jaylen Brown, the 8 turnovers certainly cast a shadow over his otherwise strong statistical performance. 29 points for assists, 3 rebounds, and a steal might look impressive on paper, but the turnovers highlighted the mental strain he was under. He was orchestrating the offense, pushing the pace, and simultaneously dealing with the burden of creating opportunities against aggressive defenders. The third quarter in particular showcased both his brilliance and his vulnerability. Scoring 17 points in that span, he was the engine that pulled Boston back into contention. But his repeated missteps were a reminder that even elite players can have nights where the balance between decision-making and execution is precarious. Watching him navigate through that rough patch provided an important lesson in perseverance and focus under pressure. It's a rare situation where a player can perform at a high level and still feel dissatisfied with their execution. But that is exactly what makes Jaylen Brown one of the most fascinating talents in the league. As the Celtics pushed past the midpoint of the season, reaching 8 wins and 7 losses, every game began to feel increasingly important. This victory, messy as it was, became a key milestone in maintaining above .500 and setting the tone for upcoming matchups against Brooklyn and Orlando. With the schedule becoming progressively challenging, including back-to-back games against strong opponents and stretches of condensed competition, establishing a rhythm in wins is critical. The Celtics' ability to overcome a difficult game, adjust defensively, and rely on standout performances from players like Derek White, Pritchard, and Brown demonstrates the resilience that will be needed to navigate the rest of the season successfully. Every individual contribution, every defensive stop, every rebound, every free throw, and every well-timed pass becomes magnified in this kind of season, where consistency is rare and momentum can swing in the blink of an eye. This game highlighted both the flaws and the potential of the team. On one hand, the turnovers revealed lapses in focus and decision-making that need correction. On the other, the recovery and execution in the second half showed the Celtics' capacity for adaptation and mental toughness. Players had to dig deep, recalibrate, and find ways to contribute beyond their mistakes. The defense forced crucial turnovers. The offense took advantage of every opportunity, and individuals like Jaylen Brown, Pritchard, and Derek White stepped into their roles with urgency and poise. It's precisely this combination of challenge and response that shapes a team's identity over the course of a long season. For the Celtics, nights like this serve as both a test and a blueprint for how they can respond to adversity moving forward. The interplay between mental focus and physical execution was evident throughout the game. When the Celtics lost their grip in the first half, it wasn't due to a lack of skill, but rather small lapses in concentration. Heads down, rushed decisions, and incomplete reads of the defense. Moments like these test not just individual players, but the entire team's ability to maintain composure under pressure. Yet, as the second half unfolded, the adjustments were clear. Defensive awareness heightened, energy on the court intensified, and passing and spacing began to reflect the Celtics' true potential. It was a microcosm of what basketball at the elite level demands: the ability to absorb mistakes, adapt, and execute under duress. The resilience displayed in overcoming these challenges speaks volumes about the Celtics' mindset this season. For instance, Derek White's defensive awareness, including timely steals, blocks, and offensive fouls drawn, exemplifies the type of smart, responsive play that can swing momentum. His performance in the second half, particularly in the fourth quarter, was pivotal not just for statistics, but for instilling confidence across the roster. Meanwhile, Pritchard's contribution across multiple facets of the game reinforced the importance of versatility and readiness to step up when the team needs it most. Together with Jaylen Brown's scoring bursts and determination to correct mistakes, the trio embodied a blend of leadership and accountability that underpins a winning culture. The broader implication of this game extends to the Celtics' positioning in the Eastern Conference. Achieving above .500 for the first time in the season is not just a statistical milestone. It is a psychological boost. Winning tough games, even in less-than-perfect fashion, builds the mental edge necessary for the grind ahead. With back-to-back matchups against formidable opponents looming, including games in Detroit, Minnesota, and Cleveland, securing victories now can alleviate pressure later, allowing the team to navigate a challenging stretch without the weight of a losing record impacting confidence. This balance of managing expectations, executing under pressure, and relying on individual excellence is what will define the Celtics' trajectory as the season progresses. The Celtics' performance against Brooklyn also provides insight into the nuances of in-game adjustments. Early struggles underscored the importance of mental clarity, communication, and anticipation. Players like Jaylen Brown and Peyton Pritchard had to operate in less-than-ideal circumstances, reading defenses that were more aggressive than usual, dealing with turnovers, and maintaining composure. Yet, as adjustments were made, whether through defensive alignment, changes in pace, or exploiting mismatches, the team began to demonstrate its capacity to control the flow despite earlier setbacks. This capacity to respond to adversity will be invaluable as the Celtics face increasingly skilled and motivated opponents in the coming weeks. The night also reinforced how critical it is to balance individual brilliance with team cohesion. Jaylen Brown's high-scoring output was essential, but it was the interplay between his drives, Pritchard's all-around performance, and White's defensive mastery that allowed Boston to emerge victorious despite early chaos. Basketball, at its core, is a team sport, and while stars can win games, it is the synergy among players, communication, anticipation, and complementary actions that sustains victories. The Celtics demonstrated that synergy in the second half, even if it was absent in the first, highlighting the constant interplay between skill, strategy, and adaptability that defines elite-level basketball. The game also offered lessons in managing pressure and expectations. Coming off previous wins, the Celtics may have underestimated Brooklyn, or perhaps the combination of travel, defensive intensity, and mental fatigue led to early miscues. Whatever the reason, it was evident that focusing on fundamentals, maintaining situational awareness, and trusting in teammates would be essential to overcoming deficits. The team's ability to recover, regroup, and execute, particularly in the second half, showed both resilience and strategic acumen. The Celtics' story from this game is one of fluctuating fortunes, personal accountability, and collective effort. Each player had moments of brilliance, moments of error, and moments where the balance between the two defined the trajectory of the contest. It serves as a reminder that basketball is as much a mental game as it is a physical one. The ability to process mistakes, adapt under pressure, and leverage individual strengths in coordination with teammates is what differentiates good teams from great ones. This was a game where the box score told one story, but the eye test told another. Turnovers, mental lapses, and early struggles painted a picture of chaos. But the second half revealed the Celtics' potential when focus, effort, and strategic execution aligned. Derek White's defense, Pritchard's all-around contributions, and Jaylen Brown's scoring bursts created the narrative of a team that refused to succumb to adversity, demonstrating the resilience, talent, and adaptability that will define Boston's season moving forward. But before we continue, please remember to subscribe to the channel and give the video a like. Your support helps us keep bringing you the latest news about the Boston Celtics. Feel free to share your thoughts on the news in the comments as well. Rumors swirled last night as the atmosphere during the Nets-Celtics clash reached a boiling point, turning an already tense matchup into the centerpiece of conversation across the basketball world. Witnesses in the arena reported a sudden shift in energy on the court, as players exchanged long stares, sharp words, and a level of physicality that felt just a little heavier than usual. The crowd reacted instantly, sensing that something beneath the surface had snapped, igniting a chain reaction that neither team seemed interested in cooling down. Sources close to both benches whispered that frustrations had been building long before the first whistle. The Nets, eager to assert themselves, brought a confrontational edge that didn't sit well with the Celtics, who responded with equal fire. What began as routine contact escalated into heated disputes, with coaches stepping forward, officials stepping in, and players stepping back only to surge forward again in verbal volleys. Even from afar, body language told a story louder than any microphone could have caught. Clenched fists, tightened jaws, and the unmistakable posture of athletes refusing to back down. Fans claimed they saw teammates pulling one another aside, urging calm, while simultaneously fanning the emotional flames with their own reactions. Social media erupted almost immediately, with clips, some real, some questionably edited, circulating and feeding the uncertainty around what had actually triggered the turmoil. Theories range from a hard screen to a perceived disrespectful gesture, but nothing has been confirmed. What remains undeniable is the lingering aftertaste of the confrontation. Analysts are already speculating about potential repercussions, wondering whether this flash of chaos signals deeper tension between the two franchises. For now, all that exists is the buzz, loud, constant, and impossible to ignore, as both teams move forward under the shadow of a night that set the basketball community ablaze. That's it for this update. If you enjoyed the video and want to keep receiving exclusive news about the Boston Celtics, please subscribe to our channel and give the video a like. We always appreciate your comments and opinions. See you in the next video.